Hey guys, Lunar Spire 1127 here, bringing you Bleach Chapter 493, Light of Happiness. So the chapter begins with Kirge's halo thingy glowing, getting ready for another one of his ultimate attacks. Ion starts charging at Kirge, but he starts decomposing. Yeah, Ion is... After what happened last week's chapter, Ion was defeated just like that, and Kirge didn't have to, do anything. He just stood there while his halo was glowing. Kirge's new technique was called Sklavere, which means holy slave. He was able to gather the reishi from Ion's body and absorb it and make it his own. I gotta admit, Kirge is becoming more and more interesting with all these cool new Quincy techniques. The Sklavere was actually pretty, I gotta admit, it was pretty cool. I mean, he gathered the reishi from Ion's body, and Ion was now decomposed. His body was now decomposing, and he's now, I guess he's nothing but bones now. He's defeated just like that. But not only was Kirge able to gather Ion's reishi, but he actually was able to take in some of Ion's attributes. His left arm is now really huge. He has now the chimera tail, the snake for tail. He has even Ion's eyes, one for each of his wings, and he even has the teeth. Ion's teeth. Yeah, he has this new form. It's like a cross between Ion and Kirge. I gotta admit, it looks pretty interesting. A bit grotesque, but he looks pretty intimidating in this. So, Milrose and Sunsun manage to grab Apache, and Sunsun creates a shield called Muda to protect both the Tre Bestia and Chad Norihime. While they're inside this shield, Milrose just noticed that Orihime, and then she was she called her the princessa that Aizen kidnapped. She's asked Orihime, why are they at Hueco again? Sunsun tells Milrose that they can ask him that later. We also learned that Sunsun's Muda is actually a barrier of Reiatsu that blocks the opponent's sensing abilities. They were going to stay concealed and go to wherever Ichigo is, but the problem is, since the barrier is nothing but made out of Reiatsu, Kirge was able to absorb the shield, was able to gather the reishi from the shield and absorb it. And it looks like that the Tre Bestia and Chad Norihime and Nell, it looked like they were screwed, because Kirge started gathering the reishi from their bodies. Orihime trying to protect Nell, and it looked like they were screwed in a way. And Kirge, he's just looking down. He started feeling sorry for them. He's like, when I see you struggling, I once again realize how unsightly the death of the weak is. I cannot bear it. Just die. Damn, Kirge! I'm starting to like Kirge more and more, but the others are saved because Ichigo activates his Bankai and destroys Kirge's halo thingy and deactivated his Sklavere. But Kirge, he's starting to get really pissed. He's like, you really are annoying! And then we cut back to Soul Society again. Yes, we see Yuki and Kajomaru, but it's actually a better reason this time. I guess the rest of Squad 13 are gathering around one of the 4 Kokuryo gates, because that was where probably the Vandenreich will use to enter Soul Society. But Buckbeard, the leader of the Vandenreich, he's just standing there looking down at the Shinigami. He's already infiltrated Soul Society. Of course, the Shinigami panicked, but Kajumaru's like, don't worry, he's outside the Shakon Maku. I'm assuming it's the barrier around Soul Society, I think? I don't know. It's been a while. But Yuki's like, no, he's already inside the Shakon Maku. And then all of a sudden, huge explosions! And then the chapter ends with Buckbeard saying, wars are really tough. So that's Bleach chapter 493. I gotta admit, I really like this chapter. This chapter was pretty good. Kirge OP is becoming such an interesting character. I gotta admit, but when I mentioned last week why he didn't die, it's because I didn't hate him. It was because I thought, since he's still Quincy, but he's still a human, so after that devastating beating from last week's chapter, I thought he would have been down for the count, but I guess not. But I really did like his techniques, the Quincy Volstandig and his Sclavere to absorb the reishi from living things, including ion. I gotta admit, it was a pretty devastating technique, and he was able to merely absorb Sensen's Muda, and he was about to absorb all the Trey Bestia, Nell, and even Chad Norihime, but thanks to Ichigo, they're still alive. Ichigo, I gotta admit, he didn't actually do much. All he did was just activate his Bankai, destroyed Kirge's Halo, and he's obviously gonna start. Obviously, the fight is still not over with, so maybe next week maybe see a bit more of the fight. But what really made this chapter for me was seeing the leader of the Vandenreich in Soul Society, and then the war finally begins. The 1,000-year blood war finally begins, and and honestly, I'm actually trying not to get my hopes up for this, but I really want to see this invasion between the Vandenreich and the Shinigami. There are tons of characters that I really want to see fight, and I'm actually looking forward to it. Maybe Yamamoto will step into the battlefield and fight against the leader. It was said that the leader was the Quincy that Yamamoto failed to kill, so who knows? Maybe you'll learn a little bit of backstory on old Buckbeard. But overall, this was a great chapter, so I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Kirge was, I gotta admit, was an interesting character, really a tough opponent. And seeing the invasion finally begin, I actually can't wait to see how this is gonna turn out. There's still a couple of Shinigami that I really want to see fight, and hopefully see them use their Bankais. But, the Vandenreich were able to steal Bankai. What I'm actually hoping to see is that if there is a fight between one of the Vandenreich and one of the Shinigami, and the Vandenreich will steal one of the Shinigami's Bankai, I'm hoping that they could be able to use that Bankai so we could actually see it work. I was actually hoping for that ever since Chojiro Sasakibe died and his Bankai was stolen. I was actually hoping to see one of the Quincy's use the Bankai, just so I can see Sasakibe's Bankai. So hopefully we might get to see that. So in next week's chapter, we may get the fight between Ichigo and Kirge will continue, but I'm hoping for next week's chapter to see the invasion, just to see how the invasion with the invasion of Soul Society again with the Vandenreich. So yeah, this was a great chapter. Can't wait to see what happens next. I'm Lunar Spy 1127, and I'll see you guys.